Now, Amnesty International wants European Union member states to halt arms sales to Egypt over alleged human rights abuses. It claims almost half of the EU member states have flouted a suspension on arms transfers to Egypt, risking complicity in a wave of unlawful killings, enforced disappearances and torture. European countries and the US say they'll continue arms sales to Egypt because it is a stable partner in a volatile region. And let's bring you more on that. We're now joined by CCTV's Yasser Hakim, live for us in Cairo. Yasser, of course, this is quite serious, halting arms sales to Egypt. Has there been any response so far from Egyptian authorities regarding these claims being made by Amnesty International?
Yes, there's been a response, and it came from the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, and it was a harsh attack on the Amnesty International, and he said that all these statements by Amnesty International are baseless. They are not based on any truths or any facts. He said that this organization is always exaggerating its comments when it discusses Egypt or condemns Egypt in any way. It's always exaggerating, and that it has always been linked to international organizations that have been influenced by the outlawed and terrorist group, the Muslim Brotherhood, that's been proclaimed a terrorist group in Egypt. He also said that all the arms that Egypt has received from its European partners has helped to stabilize, to keep the country stable, and also to combat the threats of terrorism and to save scores of policemen and soldiers and military soldiers who are killed on a daily basis by militants in northern Sinai.
And as you say, on that point, of course, Egypt does play a very important role in counterterrorism for the wider region. But its European partners, those that are giving arms, are countries like France, Germany, the United Kingdom. If they should sort of succumb to the pressure from Amnesty International to withdraw arms sales to Cairo, what would be the impact of that for not only the country, but the region?
Exactly. The impact will not be only on Egypt, it will be on the whole region. Egypt right now is the only stable country after the Arab Spring, if you may call it, and the armies of Syria, of Iraq, of Libya have been disbanded by the West, and we've seen the results of this disbanding of the armies and how it has affected these countries internally and gave room for terrorism to spread. And this terrorism would spill over to countries in the region and even to Europe now that has been affected by all this instability. If this happens also, if there is no arms given to Egyptian army and the Egyptian army would be weakened against the strengthening militancy in the region, and therefore this will also create instability within Egypt and could spill over also to other countries. The Egyptian army is also helping in wars in Yemen, in helping the Libyan army in its war on ISIL in northern Africa, as well as controlling the spread of terrorism through borders in the region by sending forces and navy to these countries as well. So it will have a strong impact.
Well, let's bring in our EU correspondent there. Jack Parrock joins us now live from Brussels. Jack, what's quite interesting, of course, about these claims being made by Amnesty International is that they're saying that these arms are being used as part of the violent crackdown that Egypt is employing as far as dissent is concerned in Cairo. And they're saying that if the EU continues with its arms sales to Egypt, they'll be complicit in human rights abuses.
Indeed, that's exactly the issue. It's important to note that back in September 2013, the 28 European Union countries signed a non-legally binding agreement to say that they would stop selling arms that could be used for internal repression to the Egyptian authorities. And that's what this Amnesty report hangs on, essentially. That Amnesty International and many other NGOs as well are saying that essentially the European Union countries, 12 of them named, by Amnesty are going back on their promise and that they shouldn't be supplying Egypt with specifically what their main concern is the small arms and vehicles and rifles that countries like Bulgaria, Italy, France and the Czech Republic are selling into Egypt, because they fear that those kinds of weapons will be used against the civilian population and also those that are obviously opposed to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
But of course, considering, Jack, that, as we just heard Yasser explain, Egypt is the most stable country in that region, and their need for arms is very much based on their necessity to counter terrorism in the region. Is it at all likely that European countries, following this statement from Amnesty International, do you think that they might consider at all stopping arms sales, or that this is very much likely to continue as a result of Egypt's important role in the region?
Well, that will be down to each of the individual countries and their governments, the 12 countries that are involved, including Germany, the United Kingdom and France, big countries and powerful voices within the European Union. They will be able to make their decisions themselves. That agreement that they agreed to, firstly, is non-legally binding, and secondly, was put in place after it was alleged that 800 Muslim Brotherhood members had been killed illegally by the forces of al-Sisi. So that was back in 2013, and obviously the situation has changed now a lot. Important to note as well that these arms deals are worth around $7 billion for European Union countries. So we're waiting to hear more from them about how they continue on this in the wake of the Amnesty International report.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Jack Parrock, live for us there in Brussels, and Yasser Hakim joining us there, of course, from Cairo.